Hello and welcome to the CVSam YouTube channel. Today we are going to be covering the best interview questions that you can ask in an interview and what the best way is to answer them. Let's get started. Before we jump in, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a like if you take something valuable out of the video, and if you want to hear anything else from us in the future, hit that notification bell as well. Let's jump in. Okay, so you're in an interview, everything's gone really well, you found out a bit of information about the business, you've asked some questions to the interviewer, and the pivotal moment comes where the interviewer turns around and says to you, do you have any questions for us? Now, a lot of people tend to shy away from the idea of asking questions in the interview, or might ask the questions during the interview. For me personally, I'd like to leave all the critical questions to the very end, and this is what we're going to run through today. We're going to go through a couple of questions. I've got around 10. Which we think that you should ask at the end of an interview. So let's jump in with question 1. Question 1. What are the next steps in the interview process? So I will personally ask this question, and we think that would be a good question for you to ask in your interview as well. It gives you a general idea of where the interview's going, what the next steps are, how long you can expect to wait until you hear back from the interviewer or the recruiter or the business, and allows you to just plan your schedule around other interviews that you have. And it just gives you a feel as to what the interview process actually is. For example, I've been to interviews before where I've had to sit in a physical interview with a panel of 3 people. But then also I've had interviews where I've had to be screened on a phone interview. I've then had to have a physical interview with my manager, and then I'll have to have an interview with the managing director. So, each business is different, each experience is different with an interview. It's just good to get a basic understanding of where you sit and what's going to be happening later on down the line in the interview process. Question number 2. What is it that you like most about working for this company? So typically I would ask this to the recruiter or the interviewer, hiring manager. There's different terminologies for them. I would ask them this question directly to sort of gauge their response and see whether, if I said, do you like this company? And they just go, oh, to me that's a bad sign. You want them to jump straight up to the plate and go, the things that we really love about this company are X, Y, and Z. It's got a great culture. They look after us. They've got great healthcare, great dental. Things like that. It's for me, it's more of a gauge to see how comfortable that person is. The interviewer is within that company. If I get a bad vibe from them, that's going to tell me that perhaps they don't like working there, which would make me want to delve a little bit deeper and find out why. What is it that they don't like about working for this company? Question number 3. What is the primary focus for the business at this present time? Now, I would personally ask this question because I think it opens up sort of a channel for me to be able to advise and put my 10 pence in sort of thing. So if the company turned around and said we're looking to improve the customer experience, I could chip in and say, okay, I've done an examination of your website or your service as a whole, and I think to improve the customer experience you could do X, Y, and Z. Obviously it's different for each interview and for each sort of role that you go for, but it allows me to get an idea as to what it is that the business is wanting to achieve, what their main focus is, and for me to input and sort of have a little bit of drive towards that focus and hopefully help the interviewer and come up with their decision over the next couple of days or weeks. Question number 4. What is the typical progression route for somebody in this role? Now, obviously, this is very subjective depending on the role that you're applying for or the job that you're going for. But it gives you a good indication as to where you can see yourself going within the next couple of months, years, for however long you work for that company. You want to know, if I join this company, is there a chance for me to go up the ladder? Or in order for me to progress in my career, am I going to have to look elsewhere? And it allows the recruiter or the interviewer as well to understand how dedicated you are, and shows that you're in it for the long run. You're not here for a 3-6 month stint. You want to stay for the long term and progress yourself in your career, which is always an advantage. Question number 5. What are the top 3 mistakes that people do in this role? So basically the fundamental of this question is to understand where your predecessor went wrong. The person who was in your role before you, you want to make sure you come in and don't make the same mistakes that they did. You know, you want to be able to identify what the pain points are for someone in that role or for someone working close to someone in your role that you're applying for. And you want to fix the problems, you don't want to be the problem. So I think tackling the mistakes head on will give you a much better competitive advantage, you know, over other, you know, candidates and things like that applying for the same role. Question number 6. What made the last person leave this role? Now, obviously this can be very straightforward, a very simple answer from the interviewer. You know, you do have scenarios where people say, you know, they decided to have a baby or, you know, changing career path and things like that. But, you know, in the odd occasion, there might be an example where someone wasn't skilled enough and things like that. You want to find out, again, why your predecessor left that role. And obviously it gives you some insights to see whether you can chip in, you know, whether you can add value, whether you can benefit from understanding why that last person left. So, you know, again, use it at your own will. I think this is a good question. I will probably ask it myself. Question number 7. What else could I tell you about myself to help you with your decision? Now, obviously, I hope it goes without saying that an interview process, you know, it's like a tug of war. You know, the interviewers, you're trying to find out more about the business in the interview, and the interviewer's trying to find out more about you and if you're suitable for the business. You know, it's a two-way street basically. You want to be able to sell yourself to them and say to them, you know, give them a reason to invest in you or take you on board as part of their team. You know, so my advice would be to, you know, put more definitive things on your CV, more exciting things. You know, if you went and climbed Mount Everest, put that on your CV, let them talk about it. 9 times out of 10, a recruiter probably wouldn't be focused on you asking them what it, you know, for you to tell them more to convince them. So if you make a point of it on your CV and you outline all the great things that you're doing, whether it's your hobbies, your interests, whether it's achievements that you've done, you know, it puts the recruiter on the spot a little bit, so they just quickly look over your CV, see something, ask you about it, which then allows you to expand. Obviously, only put things that are relative, you know, somewhat to your job or things that you really enjoy on there. But again, a great question to ask, and hopefully, providing you deliver the answer correctly, you'll be able to obviously stick in the mind of the recruiter, and it will help them and influence them with their decision when they come to hiring. Question number 8. How do you measure performance and success in this role? So for me personally, that's a great question to ask. You know, I want to be able to understand, once I'm employed by this company and I'm working full-time for this company or part-time, whichever it is that you're going for, I want to know how I'm going to be measured. What are the metrics or the boundaries, you know, within how I'm going to be sort of measured on performance and success. So for example, if my role is deadline based, then obviously the given answer is it's going to be, you know, time bound by deadlines. If you're constantly missing deadlines and you have a habit of missing deadlines, then the chances are you're not going to perform very well within the business. But depending on the type of business, again, subjective, it's a great idea to understand, okay, for me to perform and be successful in this role, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need to be able to make this visible to the business. Again, another great question. Question number 9. What are the 3 most critical attributes for this role? Asking this directly to the interviewer allows you to observe their reaction and allows you to sort of have more of an understanding as to what they're looking for in terms of, you know, how critical your skills are and what you need to be able to perform, you know, previous to the last question, to perform and be successful in that role. So I think that's a great question to ask. It allows you to see whether the business is a good fit for you. If you don't have them skills or you know, them attributes which they're asking for, then maybe it's not for you. Maybe you could scratch up on it, maybe you could perform better, Who knows? It's a great question to ask. There's no harm in asking it at all, and hopefully it'll give you a better understanding of what it is the business is looking for. Question number 10. Now, this one, again, very subjective, completely depends on the type of business that you're applying for, but I would ask, what is the average tenure of employees at this company? And obviously tenure is about the duration of someone's employment. So if you notice that their staff are leaving the job after a couple of months or a couple of weeks, it's sort of an indication that something's not right. Okay, so there it was. There was the top 10 questions sort of which we picked out, which we think, not too generalised, not too industry specific, but we think that by asking them questions, it'll give you a better understanding about the business and if it's a role that you want to take on. Now, obviously, they're the sort of right questions to ask in an interview, and take them as you wish. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cover 6 of the questions which you should not ask in an interview. Now, hopefully this goes without saying, but you never know. There are some people out there who think that this is an appropriate thing to ask. Question number 1. What is it that you do? Definitely do not ask this question in an interview. If you ask this question in an interview, do not be surprised if they open the door for you and ask you to leave. Do your due diligence, make sure you research the company beforehand and understand what it is they do. If you don't, it just shows that you're completely unprepared, you're not that bothered or interested in the job, you're wasting their time and you're wasting your own time. Don't bother doing that. Question number 2. When do I get my bonuses? Now, this is sort of a touchy one, because obviously a lot of people will be like, oh, well, that's probably sort of a relative question to ask, but realistically, it's not. On the job application, the company will list what the bonuses are, what the benefits are of working for the company, and it will be discussed eventually later on down the line. If you're dealing with a recruiter who is obviously speaking to the business, you can ask them directly after the interview. You don't want to come across as if you're, straight away asking for money, asking for bonuses, what's in it for me, take. That's not the way that these companies, especially professional companies, like to go about business. Don't ask this question. Question number 3. When do I get pay increases? Now, obviously, hopefully this again goes without saying, ties into the last question sort of thing as well. You don't want to go in discussing pay increases straight away. That will be clarified in the application process after the interview. If you're going for a recruiter, talk to your recruiter. They'll be able to get that information for you as well. It's not something which you really want to direct in the interview. The interview is more about you and the business, how you can work together, and if it's a good suit for the business and yourself. Question number 4. When am I entitled to sick pays or holidays after you hire me? Okay, well, first of all, that comes across as rude and arrogant. There's no guarantee that you're going to get hired for the role. It's being cocky, depending on your delivery. Some might find it cheeky and funny. I think 95% of people will just think you're wasting their time and you're being rude and you're after the money and you just want to take the mick, basically. Don't ask this in an interview because it will not go in your favour whatsoever. Holidays, holidays, sick pays, again, it's all discussed in the application. When the job advert first goes out, you'll be able to see, providing you're going with a reputable employer, you'll be able to see what the holidays are, what the average sick pays are, things like that. And again, if you're going through a recruiter, speak to them, they'll be able to help you with it. Question number 5, how did I do in the interview? I think it goes without saying that you shouldn't ask this while still in an interview. You will know how well your interview's gone depending on whether you get the job or not. Furthermore, what typically tends to happen is recruiters or interviewers will offer you feedback on your interview or CV after the interview has been completed. With a bit of luck, you will get the role, but you don't want to ask how well you did in the interview. It's just pure unprofessionalism. You should know yourself whether or not your interview has gone well. Go in there confident, answer all the questions properly, deliver where you think you can deliver, so offer advice, offer suggestions, be proactive with it, and you will know whether your interview's gone good or not. Question number 6. Now, this is the last question on the questions you should not ask. Hopefully this goes without saying now, and the question is, have I got the job? If you ask this question in an interview, you don't deserve the job. These people are professionals, a recruiter is a professional, an interviewer is professional, the business is professional. You're the only one that's not if you're asking this question. Do not ask if you have the job in the interview. You will be told in due course. You will be told by your recruiter or by the interviewer whether or not you have the job. So there we have it. There's some of the questions which you should definitely ask during an interview. My personal advice would be to pick or choose 2 or 3 of them. Some of them might work for your current circumstances, some of them might not, but definitely do not ask the previous 6 questions which we just discussed. You'll come across completely unprofessional and it'll just limit your chances of getting the role. Okay, so hopefully these questions help somebody out there. Now, do not forget that we are at CVSam.com, which is a free online CV creation service. Just simply sign up for an account, go through the setup, create your CV, and you'll basically have a central repository for all the different CVs which you hold. So for example, myself, I have about 3 different CVs which I use for different roles which I can do. Really simple. Within 10 minutes you can log on, fill in all your information, fill in all your details, and it can export your CV to a PDF which you can then print or forward onto recruiters. You can use that obviously for online job boards as well if they have the technology to read PDFs. So go online today, www.cvsam.com, sign up for a free account, thank me later. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification button for more videos, and I'll see you next time.